If you do this though, have another look at the set bbox knob in the merge node. At the moment it's set to union, which means it grabs the B inputs bounding box, which is this guy here, and the A inputs bounding box, which is this guy, and it merges the two together, which leaves us with a huge bounding box that has a lot of black in it. That means Nuke is processing all this black for absolutely no reason. So make sure every time you merge two inputs together, you set this bounding box knob to the most efficient setting. In this case, it's going to be the A input, and that sets my bounding box to the tiny little speck here. So we're now working on our full resolution canvas, but this is no less efficient than the incoming patch because we're telling Nuke to only worry about these pixels here. So you can now work away on your foreground in context, and obviously at some point you'll be merging that onto the background to perform the actual comp. Let me just switch off the expression arrow here. So that's all good, and now our matte painter calls us and says, hey, there is a second iteration of my matte painting. So we go ahead and upgrade to MP Patch Painted 2, which they just told us on the phone is ready for us. And it all falls apart. And if we look at the patch, we'll see that they actually increased the canvas size on all sides. So it's a centered increase in canvas size, which kind of blows our concept because the position node expects the incoming resolution to be what the crop node dictates. So what we have to do first off the bat is to crop this incoming image centered back to the original resolution, which is dictated by the crop node. So I like using a reformat node in this case because it's easier to set up a centered crop with that. And we want to use an arbitrary resolution. So I'll go to box and click the force this shape button. So now we can enter an arbitrary width and height. And looking at the crop node, you might now expect to be able to just hit the WH button and control drag your width resolution into here. And all of a sudden you're getting a totally different value. What's going on? Well, let's have a look at the expression. And sure enough, it actually created a link to the R field rather than the W field. So it looks like W and H can't be used in expression links. So we have to create our own expression to figure out the actual resolution of the crop node. So let's go ahead and do that. So uncheck that again. And in the expression in the reformat node, let me just quickly clean up this auto-generated expression here. So what we're going to do is we grab R and subtract X, just like we said in the beginning, and that will give us the resolution of the crop box, 285. And I'm just going to copy that so we can reuse it in the height field. So we go right click, add expression, paste, and we swap R for T and X for Y. So we're now subtracting Y from T to get the height. Hit enter, and since this is supposed to be a centered crop and not a resize, we have to make sure that the resize type is not set to any of those, but simply set to none. And that will turn the reformat node into a crop, which at the moment is acting as a centered crop, which is exactly what we want. But obviously we also cut off all the extra pixels that were added by matte painting. So in order to preserve that, we'll simply check the Preserve Bounding Box button, which now turns our reformat node into a viewport or a window, if you will, which creates a new format for us that we can then use as a base for our repositioning, but it also keeps all the extra pixel information outside. And if you wanted to do a non-centered crop, you could just uncheck the center box, and now the crop happens from the lower left corner outwards. But let's say we agreed with our matte painter to always change the canvas size from the center outwards, like so. And if that's the case, our centered crop will now make sure that our matte paint patch will always fall into the correct position. And sure enough, he now calls us and says, cool, we've got another iteration, so let's upgrade to version 3. And sure enough, he's changed the canvas size again, but it is a centered change to the canvas size, so that means our setup still creates the correct position. So let's go back. This is iteration 2. And this is iteration 3, and you can see even though the matte painting patch changed in resolution, our comp still stays the same. So now the client says that's all great, but we want some graffiti on this wall here as well. So we actually have to go back to our crop node and change that. And Let's just drag that over here. Don't need that much. Maybe just 1680, for example. And now we run a new patch for the matte painting guys. So I'm just going to call it mp patch 2 and render that. And now they can get to work on the second wall here. And if I look at my output comp at the moment, it now actually did fall apart because the offset and the reformat are assuming that this new crop node is what's dictating the resolution, yet the matte painting patch is still the old one. No sweat, because the moment we're getting our new patch back, which now is going to be matte paint patch painted 4, it's all going to fall back into place because this is painted on the new crop, and that crop is driving both the reformat and the positioning of the patch. So looking at the comp, everything now falls back into place.